especially my brother and I hang out with these two Christian girls that we met at Hanukkah at the Chabad event, and they of course always talked about Jesus and always wanted to talk about Jesus, and I was like, "You guys don't understand. You guys don't know what you're talking about." And I kept arguing with them about like, "You guys, you know what's going on." Um, and I remember a particular point. There's kind of two major things. I remember as time went by, time spent in the synagogue, I realized that I wasn't really getting any kind of fulfillment because I used to feel. I would tell my brother like I felt, oh, my soul is elated from being in a synagogue. It didn't last very long, so oftentimes I find myself just in synagogue and prayer, and I'm just holding up the prayer book, and it's not even the Tanakh that they read from. There's like a kind of a prayer book that usually people go through, and the rabbi leads everybody in prayer, which means he's praying really super fast. Um, and he's doing it in Hebrew. Now, most Americans don't even speak Hebrew, but even for us that do, it's hard to keep up because he's praying so fast for the most part. So the situation ends up, you end up with a prayer and you're not even sure if this is where it's supposed to start or end. And so you kind of start reading and then your mind wanders, you lose your spot, and then you basically pretend to read for a little while. And then when the rabbi kind of when you hear the rabbi say something, you kind of flip over and trying to find where he is in the prayers. Now, obviously, you're gonna have a lot of Orthodox Jews who don't do it that way, who do understand where they are and do pray in a certain way. But I would venture to say that most Jews who are not Orthodox, basically, that's their synagogue experience. They basically have to weather through the pretending to pray until it's food time. Um, and so, I tried earnestly to pray for a while, but then after, that kind of habit kicked back in. And I remember at some point I went to a trip in Argentina for a week. And on Shabbat, I went to the nearest Chabad synagogue. And I remember as we started prayer, I was just looking at my prayer book and I was kind of looking around. And I was like, man, what am I even doing here? I need to go back to my Airbnb and like go sleep for some more or something like that. Because I just looked around and I felt nothing of the stuff that I used to feel in the synagogue. So I remember one night as we were hanging out with our Christian friends, one of the girls had uh, slipped me her phone with a passage on it and asked me who it was talking about. And so I read it, and like the first verse was like, "Oh, this isn't looking good. I think this might be the Jesus guy." And then as I kept on reading, the more it sounded like Jesus, and I was like, "Oh man, this is really not good." Um, and I had no Bible literacy, no Hebrew Bible literacy. Like I didn't know anything really. So as I'm reading this, I started like really sweating inside, not visibly. I tried not to make it show, but I was sweating. Um, but I thought I'd be clever, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I think I was honest in that. Yeah, it does sound like Jesus, but is this like Old Testament or New Testament?" Because she was gonna say New Testament. I was about ready to blow out of the water and just say, "Oh, we don't believe in that." Um, and she was like, "Oh, it's Old Testament. It's Isaiah 53," and I was like, "Ah." So I had to go home and look up what the rabbis say about Isaiah 53 because man, did it sound like Jesus is being talked about there. And I looked and I didn't really find anything that was satisfying to me. Um, I think interestingly enough, now much later, I have a better understanding of what the rabbis say about it, but I still don't find it convincing. But at the time, I found I came across a debate on YouTube from two people from like 1992 or 1993. And the two people uh, were a Messianic Jew, Dr. Michael Brown, and then an Orthodox Jew, Rabbi Tovia Singer. And I put this on fully expecting like the Orthodox rabbi to just wipe the floor with the Messianic guy, because those guys are crazy, right? They don't know what they're talking about. um, but as I listened to it, and honestly, I'm not even sure I had an open mind, because again, I was basically planning on the Orthodox Jew winning the debate and giving me the ammunition I needed to, go back to that one girl and be like, you're wrong. Um, but as I was listening to it, Dr. Michael Brown was taking verses, making a sensible interpretation of them, and making logical arguments. And then
Mm.
Rabbi Tobias Singer was talking around circles, redirecting, deflecting, and I was like, what is going on here? Like, we're supposed to have the logical high ground. Why is he acting like a politician? And why is the other guy making so much sense? Um, so that was a huge shift for me because I remember it was a little bit of a physical being rattled about like what's going on here. So later on, her and I would basically agree to like do a Bible study, just go through one of the books of the New Testament. And another friend of mine who's Christian who works with me um, had suggested to go through Hebrews because I'm a Hebrew. So
Mm.
it's written for Hebrews. Um, it's not until later on I would figure out it's one of the harder books of the New Testament
Oh.
to go through. Um, but my point really in that Bible study again was really trying to poke holes into it and basically prove to my friend that Jesus isn't the Messiah and this is all just a bunch of nonsense. As we sit here and have this conversation, everybody knows how well that went for me. But so I would say even after the second time, the second week that we had sat through it, which would have been the second chapter, I remember I was home one evening and I was taking a shower, and I had this like something was gnawing at me. I was like, what if it's true? What if they're right and he is the Messiah?
Mm.
Um, and I did this silly like thought experiment. I was just let me just pretend like I'll kind of, you know, let him in, so to speak, and it'll be silly, and I can move forward. Um, and so I did. I just kind of like, hey, if you're real, I'm waiting for you. Basically, I'm open to
Mm.
you. And immediately, I just started feeling warm all over my body, and I started smiling. I had like a giddy smile on me, and that went on for like 10 or 15 seconds, and I just freaked out, and then I like shut it off. I was like, whoa, what was that? Let's not do that again. Um, so we went to like I would say about 5 more weeks of Bible study through Hebrews, and some things happened where I had honestly some more signs to confirm that. And at that point, there was another girl that joined the Bible study, and I was like, I gotta confess this. I gotta say what had happened to me so many weeks ago, and actually I had uh, prayed to Yeshua for the first time then, or rather in His name for the first time, and it was really hard to do that. I didn't say even Yeshua, I said Jesus at the time, and that was hard
Mm.
to say out loud. I'm sure a lot of Jews can relate to it who are in the faith. But I did, and then I think it was 2 weeks after that that I found out that there's going to be a Messianic men's retreat, which I didn't really
Mm.
know what it was. A friend of mine had mentioned it, and I didn't know anything about it, but I was like, okay, sure, I guess we'll jump with both feet in. And so I asked him about it, and he didn't even know much about it either because it was going to be his first time. But it was going to
Mm.
be the Hope of Israel Messianic Men's Retreat. Um, so we planned to go up there together, or at least show up there together at the same time, but he ended up having to pick up his dad.
Mm.
So he ended up being super late. So I walked in there and I knew nobody. And I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what this like men's retreat is going to be like. I'm 2 weeks in the faith. I have no idea what's going on. Um, so I walk up and I check in and I speak to, I think one of the first guys that I spoke to was somebody called Dimitri,
Mm.
who I later found out is your
Yeah.
dad. But um, it's just I met Sam and everybody there, and it's just been such a wild ride of like my head is still spinning ever since then. I've been learning so much. I've been meeting so many people. I've been seeing God work in my life. Honestly, every time whether it's like every week or every month, sometimes depending on the season,